Thank you, Josh. It is such a bracha to be here. It's just a chut. It's such a privilege. I'm really glad to be back. And I'm going to be offering a practice today that I calling a belovedness or belonging practice. But before I do so, I want to frame it with a little bit of Jewish teaching. So there are two things happening simultaneously that I think can be beautiful framings for us as we move into practice. One of which is calendrical. We are into the month of Tammuz. Rosh Chodesh Tammuz was last Thursday and Friday. And Tammuz is a month of complexity because the first half of the month, give or take a little, is still kind of this time where we're after Shavuot, we're in that summer season. Some of us may be experiencing, as I am, a really tremendous heat wave right now, but wherever you are in the world, there's certain way of relaxation, whether it's summer for you or winter for you. But then we move into this 3 week period beginning on the 17th of Tammuz, Shiva Asar Tammuz, and we finish that on the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av. And the rabbinic tradition calls these 3 weeks Bein HaMitzarim, between the narrows, because we have the fast day of the 17th of Tammuz, which commemorates a variety of tragedies that befell our people throughout history. And then we conclude with, of course, the saddest day of the year, Tisha B'Av. So Tammuz has this more relaxed, perhaps, atmosphere in the beginning, and then it turns quite dramatically. And when we get to the 3 weeks, it can feel a lot of different things, right? On the one hand, it can feel really hard to connect to for some. For others of us, it feels too easy to connect to. For some, there's some middle space on that spectrum. And for many others, it just kind of passes unnoticed. But it's an opportunity that our calendar gives us to really be with loss, be with challenge, be with pain, really navigating those feelings and those experiences. The other thing that we are working with Jewishly right now is that this week's parasha is Chukat. And one of the things that happens in this week's parasha is Miriam dies. Miriam Haniviyah, Miriam the prophetess, Moses' beloved sister, really important figure in our tradition. And when she passes away, the well nourished our ancestors in the desert dries up. And the people begin to panic. Where's the water? We have no water. This is a common theme. We've gone through this in several different parshiot now in the Book of Numbers. We've gone through a series of people really struggling profoundly with the circumstances that are being presented to them and really not knowing how to deal with them and not knowing how to negotiate. And Moses getting angry, and that happens again this week, very famously. Moses gets very angry, strikes a rock, and as a result of that, is of course not able to ever enter Israel, which or enter Canaan, into the Promised Land. And there's this ongoing theme of circumstances arising, people not knowing how to deal with those circumstances, and then there being really strong reaction to that. There are a lot of different ways to understand this in terms of commentary, but I want to think about it from a mindfulness perspective, of course, which is that the people had the sense of nourishment, the sense of resourcing. And then Miriam passes away, and that sense of resourcing is gone. And that gets symbolized in Torah as the well. But in our own experience, when difficulty and challenge arise, as they inevitably do, and as they certainly have, for lots and lots of us in this past year and a half and longer, and many, many, of us have had all kinds of encounter throughout our lives in different ways with varying degrees of challenge, pain, loss, difficulty. Sometimes we feel like that resourcing is not available. We don't know how to get to it. We might even feel like we have no one. We're alone. No one understands us. No one empathizes. Nobody cares. So I want to invite us today into a cultivation practice that is a belovedness or belonging practice. I'm going to be offering some pretty substantial instruction. And I want to explain for a moment what this practice is intending to do and why it is that I particularly love cultivation practice. So I often think about the human mind as always in training. But the question is, what are we training the mind for? And I'm sure I'm not alone in the fact that my mind has incredible experience and training in the art of anxiety, in the art of catastrophizing. My mind's really good at those things, very proficient, gold medal, right? But often when we're training in those things, we aren't then allowing for other possibilities to arise. And that's where cultivation practice can come in because we're trying to here incline the mind towards different ways of being skillful, towards different mind states, towards different ways of experience. And we're not doing this as a way of bypassing what our actual experiences in the world are. Instead, we're doing is actually trying to give ourselves more tools to meet the experiences that we're actually having in the world. So, for example, when Bnei Israel, when the children of Israel lose the well, what's the experience? Panic, frustration, mourning, devastation, right? All of those things arise really quickly. Understandably, they've lost Miriam Hanaviyah, Miriam the prophetess, has passed away, this beloved leader. Where is the care going to come from now that this beloved leader is no longer here? So, in our cultivation practice, which I'm going to guide us into now, we're going to be working with allowing and inviting ourselves to create and cultivate felt sense experience of care and belovedness. And before we do that, I want to invite us to do a little bit of somatic grounding. So you might want to notice your feet on the floor or the contact of the body with the chair or the cushion or the couch or whatever surface you're on. If you are walking, that is also a perfectly fine practice position. So taking a moment to just notice the feet on the ground, notice the body in contact with what supports it. And I want to now invite us to turn our attention towards our anchor. Some of us may have an anchor that we find really beautiful and we work with all the time. Others of us may be experimenting with different anchors. The anchor, of course, is the point of stillness and presence that we return to again and again in practice when the mind wanders. So just giving ourselves a moment to find that anchor. And as we do, resting our attention there, the invitation now is to invite a beloved, let me say this again. The invitation now is to bring to mind some being, and I'm specifically saying the word being because it could be a human, could be a plant, could be an animal, it could be a place even, that has extended care or loving kindness to you in some way. And here we're actually inviting ourselves to bring a being to mind for whom the care was a smaller kind of care. Maybe not the most significant act of care you've ever experienced, but something more mundane, something smaller, something that happened in the experience that you had one day, maybe while running errands. Maybe somebody helped you lift some bags into a car. Maybe somebody was kind to you in a moment of real stress and frustration. Maybe you have a beloved pet that just gives you so much joy. You can imagine that pet. Maybe there's a place that when you're there, it just feels safe somatically. It just feels like you're in a safe space. I want to invite, as you're bringing this to mind, you to really enrich the presence of this place or this being in whatever way is available to you, to allow yourself to immerse in that care, in that kindness. holding that being in mind, the invitation now is to invite another being in the same way to join the first being that has extended care in some way. And as you do, allowing that being to join the first being, really allowing yourselves to enrich the felt sense of being in the presence of these beings, the felt sense of knowing that there has been care extended. I now want to invite you, if it feels right for you, to do this a third time, to bring another being to mind to join the first two. Again, it could be a plant, an animal, a person, a place. It could even be an imagined being. And as you bring these three beings to mind, you have two options now. One is to continue in this way, practice to keep bringing beings to mind and just adding them to the circle. Or you can move into a place of imagining that the three beings that you've already brought to mind are surrounding you in a circle. And if you choose to practice in this way, the invitation is to imagine them saying words you need to hear that are loving and caring and generous. And that can be through speech if you are a hearing person, and that's your method of communication and presencing. It could be through some other means of communication. It could be nonverbal in some way, but it's a way of receiving messages of care and love. What are the things you need to receive? Imagining that these beings, maybe imagining their voices and the quality and cadence, maybe imagining what they appear visually to be like for you, maybe imagining their felt sense presence, whatever it is. But allowing yourself to imagine receiving words of care from this circle of care. However, you need to hear or receive it, whatever you need to hear or receive. Feeling the sense, the felt sense that there is love, there is care. The world is many things all at once. We'll now sit together for about 5 minutes in silence as we continue this practice, and I will indicate verbally when we are moving from silent practice back to our collective relational Zoom hall together. Enjoy your sit. As we move to close our practice, you're invited to return to the collective Zoom space that we share. Thank you very much for your practice and for creating this beautiful energetic field of practice.
Thank you, Lauren.
And now I'm going to turn it over to Josh. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lauren. And I hope everybody can stick around at the top of the hour for some conversation and reflection about the very rich teaching and practice. And if you need to leave us, we wish you Tzedchem L'Shalom, farewell, and hope you'll join us again. Right now, we have an opportunity if anyone is remembering loved ones or others to do so. If you wish, you can put in the chat the name of anyone you're remembering today. We'll open up the chat to do that. And thanks to Rachel Huguet for staffing our tech desk today. And the text of the Kaddish is up on the screen as well. And if you'd like to unmute, you're welcome to join me in reciting the Morning Kaddish. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Alma Yivrach Yirutei V'Yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon V'Michol B'chayei D'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agalam V'Zman Karev
Amen.
Hey Shmei
Amen.
Rabba Mevarach Le'alam
Amen.
Le'alam
Hey, Shemay Rabba Mevarach Le'olam
Bach
Olam
Aya
Me'alaya.
Raman
Yivarach
V'Yitzeh
Tabach V'Yitfa'al
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 V'Yitne
V'Yitnaseh.
V'Lam
Yitkadal Yit'ala
V'Yishtar
V'Yitchalal Shemeh
Ela
V'Yachusha Barich.
V'Yofata V'Shirat
Ilal Mincha
Ishbechata
Tushbachata
V'Nechamata
Tushbachata
Amiran Ba'alma
V'Nechmata
V'Yivru
Da'amiran
Amen
Be'alma V'Yivru
Yehi
Amen.
Shlama Rabba
Hey
Yerushalayim
Shalom Rabba
Ayim
Yerushalayim
Aleinu Ve'al
V'Chaim
Beit
Aleinu
Yisrael
Ve'al Kol
V'Yimru Amen
Yisrael V'Yimru
Shalom
Amen.
b'imai hu ya'aseh
Oseh
shalom
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 B'Mumam
b'romav
Ya'oseh Shalom
al kol
Aleinu
yoshvei
Ve'al Kol
tevel.
Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'Yimru.
Amen.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. And we'll bring Rabbi Lauren back up here for great. Okay, there we go. All spotlighted. Oh, wow. I'm like seeing myself. That looks very nice. It's very pretty. Okay. I usually have my self view off, so but I'm outside today on the back deck because the temperature allows it here in Chicago. Lauren, thank you so much for that wonderful teaching and practice, and you took us through sort of some of the bumpy themes of the month of Tammuz and spilling over into the month of Av, right? And we and then taking us into a reflection also on this week's Torah portion and the presence of this very important loved one and counselor and advisor and leader for the Jewish people, Miriam, the prophet, sister of Moses, and who passes away, and then that leads to seems to lead to Moses striking the rock and everything that comes from there. And then you brought us into a practice about just really, I love the invitation. I'm not only thinking of like a person, but like other beings. You were very capacious in how you sort of identified that. And I'd love to hear from folks in the chat, maybe if there are particular beings who you brought in. But yeah, so I'm there's a lot of ground you covered there. So I'm trying to think, the best place to start. And one thing that occurs to me, Lauren, is just to dwell for a moment on Miriam and the notion of presence and absence. I remember a wonderful Dvar Torah that I heard many years ago about how Miriam represents like wise speech or courageous speech to Moses, and that sometimes just having people who are around us whose presence just cues us in like unspoken ways, right, how to behave. And then she's absent, and the next thing he does is he speaks and acts very unmindfully, right? He more important, he acts very unmindfully. And so the invitation to bring people into our circle and into our awareness, as that just sort of source of support, I think was like really aligned with that. So I'm curious for you, like how this practice, shows up for you. How do you personally, if you can share, how do you make use of it, or try to work with it during these difficult times?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Josh, for that really beautiful question and reflection. So, one of the things actually is related to why I invited in multiple beings and not just humans. Because I think that this practice can be really resourcing in lots of ways. And I know in my own practice, sometimes like, my dog makes an appearance more often than not, right? But I've really come to appreciate as a teacher of practice that there's a lot of importance and wisdom and like honoring that people come to practice with so many different experiences and that we don't know what they're holding. And so the wider the instruction we can offer, the wider that soft landing spot, the more agency that we can give folks and that we can give ourselves, the more resourcing. And that's what I find in my own experience these days. Like really allowing for that agency. This practice gives you so much agency because you get to work with whatever circle you want to work with.
Hmm.
The suggestions are suggestions. They're not prescriptions, right? I offer them to kind of give folks a little bit of scaffolding, because you wouldn't want to just say like, bring someone to mind and just leave it hanging there. It's like, okay, what do you want me to bring to mind here? What's the intention? But it's then allowing within that scaffolding for a lot of play and a lot of exploration. And so that for me is really supportive because it also sort of helps me when I'm able to get there, really like shift my own experience. Like I'll say, today I was thinking about had a medical appointment that went very well, Baruch Hashem, this morning, and thinking about the medical professionals that I interacted with. I may never cross paths with them again. But in that moment, that care that was extended was, really important and made the experience possible and all of those things. So like really inclining my mind towards, oh, that care happened because I'm so inclined, and I think many of us are, to, oh, that person did or said whatever horrible thing, or whatever difficult thing. And I think we live in a world that deeply trains our minds that way through, all the kinds of media we encounter, through all the kinds of interpersonal stuff. And so I think that this is a way of actually, excuse me, of actually trying to reroute some of those neurons
Mm.
and actually remind ourselves when it really doesn't feel this way, that there is care and belovedness.
Yeah. Yeah. Some folks shared, some examples of what folks shared, a childhood swing, a
I love that.
scurry as a noun, a scurry of baby squirrels, uh, um, uh, all of my dogs, 6 of them, my husband, sister, brother, and my favorite library. Uh, there's one comment, I miss people who ignite slash inspire my better self, um, which is got a lot of likes. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of wonderful things. Rana has a question here. Oh, and I didn't mention Rana is a good leading by example there. But if you're new to the chat, if you have a question, just to list it in all caps, question before it helps it to be more easily recognizable. So I brought my I don't know if that says fur babies or that meant for babies. I'm not sure. Ronnie, you want to clarify that one? Anyway, my wife, past supervisors, temple members, IJS neighbors into my circle. I wonder how long does it take to embrace the love that must come from within? That is the love that allows me to see my beauty, divine light, and the perfect imperfection of my humanness. That is the love that allows me to see the same in others, even those with whom I struggle to maybe sense their spark. Um, yeah, so I think that the question in there, I mean, I'm not sure this is like meant to be necessarily a direct question, but something to sort of reflect on is how long does it take to embrace the love that must come from within? Which is that's such a powerful question, Rana. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Thank you, Rana. I would say in my own experience of practice that there is no timeline in the sense that one of the things that cultivation practice does is it inclines the mind. And we may find that there are days when it's really working and we feel something. And we may find that there are times when we do this practice, we don't feel anything at all. And I don't think that that is a problem. I don't think that either of those things is a problem. Because ultimately, over time, the more that we work with practice, the more accessible the felt sense is. So I don't think that there's any prescribed time. I think it's a matter of returning to practice, just as with a lot of other things in life. The more we return to something and work with it, the easier it likely becomes. I think there's truth here. So I would say to anyone who's wondering, don't get discouraged if there isn't an immediate feeling here. That's not the goal, actually. It's really about cultivating these qualities, we might even call these divine qualities within ourselves through these practices. And then hopefully we can radiate those outward as well. Not only feel it inwardly, but actually radiate it outward.
Mm, beautiful. So, Mary had a very practical question. Was there a particular reason why you chose um, three beings? Uh, yeah. Was there any particular reason for that?
That's a beautiful question. That's just how, honestly, that's how I was taught the practice. So
Hmm.
there's no particular reason. I think that there's a certain sense of like two is great, but adding to that can be supportive. So three can often be a sweet spot. It doesn't have to be.
Hmm.
And though very conscientious when I lead this practice, um, of trying to keep the number small through invitation, because I want to be aware of the variety of experience practitioners are having. And often, if people feel like they have to find something or bring a being to mind and they don't have one, that can feel really hard. So I want to sort of give the agency, but also keep that agency contained.
Hmm. Yeah. Some other great comments that are here. Um, I feel there must be a stronger mind than mind that can conjure the past, a past person, place that is comforting. That for me is so different than in the now or recent in person. But as you say, the more we return to practice. So this is from somebody who's identifying as M. Um, but that's a lovely phrase, a stronger mind than mind. That's
Hmm.
yeah, there's something there. And then Esther, I just want to lift this one up, says, thank you, Rabbi Lauren, for this resourcing practice. At first, I couldn't imagine a being or beings. And then after stillness and feeling held by the energy of the community, I was surrounded by several people at the pool I go to where I do my body practices as I recover my ability to walk. So thank you, Esther. That's a
Hmm.
really powerful reflection there.
Beautifully
Um,
powerful. Thank you.
yeah. And Margot here says, remembering Rhoda, a good friend that I haven't been in touch with for some time. Is this the same Margot Sack that I know? Then are you think okay, we're thinking the same Rhoda? Anyway, she always had a way of helping me see my positive contributions and how my presence brings something unique and special to circumstances. So, yeah, this is so great for folks to. I think it also it's just nice to think of people and beings and things that are pleasant for us. It's just a good invitation, to like think of those people and bring them to mind and bring them, not just not and like spend a little time with them in our imaginations. That's really
Yeah, and
beautiful.
I think actually on a wider level, right, that our practice is very much individual in lots of ways, and in that we have our own practice and we, investigate experience and practice. But I also deeply believe that contemplative practice, and I know Josh, that you probably heard me say something like this before, um, that it is a collective balm for the Jewish soul. And that I think if we are really allowing ourselves to feel the love and care, it's easier in my own experience to negotiate a world that can often feel quite the opposite and to find our footing and to find that even amidst really difficult times for so many of us, for so many reasons, that there is a certain way that we are held. It's really, I know in my own experience, the story of, my belovedness is conditional, or I don't earn it in some way because of X, Y, and Z. And I unfortunately think that many of us could actually answer that question. As one of my teachers asked on retreat last week, the question, what's wrong with you? A lot of us could find lots of answers to that. And part of the cultivation practice is like being able to ask the question, what's wrong with you? And actually have nothing land. Because what if there's actually nothing wrong? What if there's actually nothing wrong? We just are as we are, right? And so that's part of also, I think, the wider possibility present for us, or the wider thing we could choose to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to share with you, Lauren, because I don't know if you're able to how much of the chat you're able to pick up, but
Yeah, it's
I
turned
but
off, so I'm not getting
okay.
the chat.
Well, so I wanted to share this one with you that's from Roberta, which is a really powerful reflection. She said, Roberta says, I realized during this sit that I can bring to mind the beautiful relationship I had with my daughter when she was a young child. We've been estranged by her choice for almost a year now. Bringing back the loving connections, welcoming in the love and joy we shared at that time, and the memories of her joyful spirit, joined with the presence of my two lovely kitties, made it a very meaningful meditation. So thank you.
Oh, thank
So
you. That's
yeah.
very powerful.
Really, you sparked a lot of really great things today. This is really great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, and Judith shares, I thought of strangers I've met on the road of life, especially when traveling alone. Folks who welcomed me into their homes, drove me places, gave me hugs or a shoulder to cry on, gave me food or train rides, even though we didn't speak the same spoken language.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, really lovely, lovely, good things. Well, I hope everybody feels the invitation. First of all, you can always come back to this practice as just a reminder. These are all on YouTube. There's an enormous treasure trove of wonderful meditations that are on our YouTube channel, and this one will be the latest edition that will go up there later today or tomorrow. And second is, just the invitation, I think, to have this practice. Like, this is such a great sort of back pocket, practice to have in mind, is like just to bring in, sources of love and support, and allow ourselves to sense that presence and be embraced and held and supported by it. Really, just it's in the category, Lauren. I feel like of like one of those things. It's like, I can't believe that we have to be reminded to do this.
I
Like, we
know.
do,
I
right? We have to
know.
be
We do.
reminded,
It,
you
it
know.
is really unbelievable, though, in so many.
So
It's really sad when we feel into that. Like, oh my gosh, we have to remind ourselves to do this. But
right,
we do.
we do. So, um, uh, okay, there's a couple more that have come in. A lot of thank yous. Uh, I'll read Harris's here, and then I think we're gonna wrap up. Harris says, "Oh, hold on, it just moved. Two young people who brought me dinner when I was down with Achilles tendon surgery, and stayed to chat and get to know each other. And then my cat joined us all. A lot of cats in these stories. It felt
Oh,
so good to me to be cared for, because we belong to the same synagogue, even though we didn't know each other before. A real blessing then, and each other, and each time I see them. So thank you, Harris, for that. Um, thank you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here today, and thank you to Rabbi Lauren Tuchman for this wonderful teaching and practice. Thank you to Rachel Huget for our being the support in the background for us today, and to everybody for contributing so much. Thank you. We will be back tomorrow, same time and channel. So until then, we wish you uh, blessings for the rest of your day, and be well. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. And if you want to save the chat, last thing, there's three dots next to where it says daily meditation set in the chat box. You can say save chat. A lot of people like to do that, so you can do that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Take care.